Darkcast Network, indie pods with a dark side.
Hey, little skeletons. I'm Gina.
And I'm Amber.
And this is Weird True Crime.
Something we've been able to include in our cases lately has been portions of interrogation videos. Thanks, Dustin. Which I don't know about you, but I can go down rabbit holes of watching interrogation videos online. Actually, the leaf killer case that we covered is one that I stumbled across the interrogation video of and couldn't get it out of my head. If you haven't heard that one before, I highly recommend checking out our episode on Matthew Hoffman. It's a strange one, for sure.
Yeah, the Matthew Hoffman case was freaking wild and definitely worth a listen. I think we all know the case that had me going down a rabbit hole was the one we just covered on Gannon Stauch. I spent, I don't even know how many hours listening to trial coverage, interrogation videos, the phone conversations. It was just like exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. And I'm so glad I'm done with that insane woman. It was a lot. And if you have a day's worth of laundry to do and need something to listen to, check out our 3-part series and go down your own rabbit hole when it comes to that case.
Speaking of even more rabbit holes, my sister from another Mr. Shammy showed me something and sent me spiraling. Thanks for that, by the way, friendo. After my descent into the information abyss, I really feel that it just needs to be shared with you all today. Plus, we've got some other somewhat entertaining stories of the police officer variety for a few hits of comedic therapy.
Before we get into it, here's our riddle of the day. The man who built it doesn't want it. The man who bought it doesn't need it. And the man who needs it doesn't know it. What is it? Stay tuned to the end to find out the answer.
We're heading back to the roaring 20s for this particular tidbit of information. There are some infamous cases that took place during the 1920s. Al Capone and the St. Valentine's Day Massacre that took place on February 14th, 1929, in a garage in Chicago. 7 men were gunned down by men dressed in police uniforms with machine guns. No one was convicted of the massacre, but it was widely thought that Al Capone was responsible for putting the hit on the men, despite him allegedly staying at his Florida home during the time of the killings.
Sure.
One of the men was barely alive when the police came, but he refused to talk to them.
Funny story. I have a great uncle that worked for Al Capone, and I always loved throwing that information around growing up because it made me feel really cool to be like an Italian with mob ties. Really not cool, but
It's, if you're like us, it's cool.
It's pretty cool. I should have known then that I was going to end up like this as an adult.
This is where we would end up. Yep.
Yeah. There's also the Wall Street bombing in 1920. In September of 1920, a horse-led cart was stopped on the street between the USSA office and the J.P. Morgan building on Wall Street. A short time after the driver exited the cart and vanished from sight, an explosion went off from the cart that resulted in the death of more than 30 people in the area, as well as over 200 people injured in the process. Investigators were never able to get more than a vague description of the man, and eventually, after 3 years, the case went cold and the bombers were never identified, making this one of the most popular unsolved crimes in U.S. history. Very cool. Sad, but cool.
If I think about the 1920s, Albert Fish immediately comes to mind. Albert Fish, also known as the Brooklyn Vampire, the werewolf of Wisteria, and my personal favorite, the Gray Man, was an American serial killer, rapist, child molester, and cannibal. Think it's not going to get any worse, and it just keeps going. Yeah, there's a whole lot that can be said about him, and has been by several other podcasters and YouTubers. He was a suspect in at least 5 murders throughout his lifetime, and once boasted that his number of victims was about 100. But who knows if that is true or not.
We know how serial killers like to exaggerate the truth from time to time and increase their numbers to make them sound worse than they really are. But either way, Albert Fish is a really messed up guy. So, it doesn't really matter what the numbers were there. He's still awful. You can't forget the Black Sox trial of 1921. Players on the Chicago White Sox team allegedly purposefully lost the 1919 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds for money. 8 members of the team were tried for throwing the game and dubbed the Black Sox, but were found not guilty after records and the confessions disappeared during the trial. Fishy, fishy. Even though they were found not guilty, they were unable to continue playing baseball as they were permanently banned, and rightfully so if they actually did do that. Rumors circled that they were supposed to receive $20,000 after each loss, but the gamblers responsible for bribing the players weren't holding up their end of the deal, so the team called off the deal after losing the first few games. Some players claimed they received threats after their winning games, so they ended up losing the 8th game of the series, thus giving the winner title to the Reds.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, I wonder how much that is now.
7 days later.
$300,114.
Jeez.
Well, as you can see, lots of crazy things happened in the 1920s. I mean, all of those could be stories on their own, but that's not what we're talking about today. Interrogation tactics and protocols have certainly changed and evolved over the years, but the purpose and end goal has remained the same. Ask a lot of questions for a long time to get information. I'm sure there are a multitude of movies and television shows that come to mind involving well-known interrogation scenes. You know what I'm talking about, the whole good cop, bad cop routine for sure. With all the craziness that happened during the 1920s, I can only imagine that the interrogations were intense.
The outfits and the accents alone make me wish I could be a fly on that wall from the 1920s. The trench coats and the hat. Oh, man. That'd be it's like living in a black and white movie. That would be so sweet. Anyway, that's just my little side fantasy. Okay. Today, we're talking about a woman named Helene Adelaide Shelby and her interesting interrogation invention. Helene was tired of retracted confessions, so on August 16th of 1927, she filed a patent for her apparatus for obtaining criminal confessions and photographically recording them. In her patent application, she explained, "It is a well-known fact in criminal practices that confessions obtained initially from those suspected of crimes through ordinary channels are almost invariably later retracted or repudiated by the criminal with the charge that these confessions had been obtained through intimidation or under duress."
I mean, sounds legit, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Record the confession so it can be used later to prove it wasn't obtained under less than ideal methods. Well, if you've been a listener for a little while now, you know that's not the end of the story. What we haven't mentioned yet, obviously, is the specifics of this particular apparatus she's referring to. First, let's go over how everything would work according to her schematics and diagrams. The suspect is confined in a small, dark chamber. The examiner doing the interrogation sits in a second attached chamber where he asks questions through a megaphone, but the suspect cannot see him. What he does see is after the examiner flicks a button, a curtain lifts within the suspect's chamber, and he is faced with a, quote, figure in the form of a skeleton, end quote, surrounded by a thin veil with lights above and below it, which was designed to make the skeleton seem like an apparition. Light comes on, curtain lifts, and you're staring at a ghostly skeleton.
Which back then was probably once a real person. You know, because like in the old days, they used bleached skeletons. So it would make sense that it's like you're using this ghostly apparition of a skeleton, but it's actually probably was once a real person, which is actually really terrifying. Oh, and the asking the questions through the megaphone just like really gets me. Like, imagine sitting in this dark, cramped room and someone's yelling at you through a megaphone, asking you questions. Like, that's intimidating enough while you're sitting there in the dark and you can't see who's yelling at you through a megaphone. Like, I don't even think you need the apparition.
Well, we all know how to interrogate Gina if it comes down to it.
Just yell at me while I'm in a dark room. I'll tell you anything. Just let me out. Give me some light. Jesus. Okay. Oh, man. We haven't even gotten into it. It's already hilarious. Okay. So there the suspect is, confined in this small space, and then suddenly a skeleton has spontaneously arisen in his chamber in front of him. But wait. There's more. To continue with the spooky image, the skeleton's eye sockets contain red light bulbs, quote, for the purpose of importing an unnatural ghastly glow, end quote, and a megaphone is affixed so it appears that the voice of the interrogator comes from the mouth of the skeleton. According to Shelby, when faced with a ghost skeleton, the suspect will spontaneously confess his most secret crimes. Yes. Yes, he would. Also, the eyes would blink to add to the mystification. Seriously, though, you're brought in for questioning on a crime you are guilty of, and suddenly you're ushered into a small dark room by yourself where you wait. Suddenly, you find yourself face to face with a ghostly, lit up skeleton whose glowing, blinking eyes stare directly into your soul while it demands to know your deepest, darkest secrets. Would you spill the beans? I think we've already determined that I would. And being that this is the 1920s, if you look at it through a 1920s lens, this is probably terrifying.
For sure.
These people, you know, like they don't live in the world we live in now where it's so easy to manipulate these kinds of circumstances. That would be just like, you know.
I think we're more desensitized to it all these days. But hang on, I got to save these schematics. This could come in handy for when I've got a teenager on my hands, though. Sadly, Shelby's invention never took off, and even more sadly, I don't believe that her invention was ever even built. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for the perp that had been subjected to that for the first time, if it had ever been able to happen. In 1961, a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that coerced confessions weren't admissible in court. And I think that a ghostly skeleton demanding your secrets would have probably been viewed as such. Although, is a skeleton scaring a confession out of someone considered coercion?
Yeah.
Regardless, Helene seems like she was my kind of people back in the day. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right, well, if that wasn't funny enough, how about a little bit more funny to end out the day? Reddit never fails in providing gems for us to share with you. So here are 10 funny cop stories for a quick shot of dopamine. Some of these will be directly from police officers, and others will be just funny encounters.
First up today from Harry Bratwurst on Reddit. I love it. Oh, quote, "Not me, but I have a family member in the highway patrol. He told me this funny story. One day, he pulled this woman over for speeding. After coming to a stop, he walked up to her window and gave her his classic, quote, 'Do you know why I pulled you over?' End quote. She quickly responded that she knew she was speeding, but asked if she gave him an excuse for why she was speeding that he had never heard before, could he let her off with just a warning? She then said, 'If you have heard this excuse, I will gladly sign your speeding ticket.' He laughed and said he'd been with the highway patrol for so long that he's heard them all, but told her to at least try. At that moment, the woman pulled out a vial of horse semen from between her breasts and explained how she was a horse breeder and needed to get the sample to its location for insemination before it went bad. After he finished laughing, he let her off with a warning." I mean, if that's not a good reason for speeding, I don't know what is.
And I would have had more questions if the police officer had actually heard that excuse before anyway.
What?
So
Be like listing off other horse breeders, you know? Oh, was it so-and-so? Like, oh, I know her. Whatever. But between your boobs, like, why not bring a warmer? I don't want horse semen anywhere near me. Okay.
well, that's why you're not a
It's
horse
fine.
breeder.
That's fair. Good point. Yes. Well,
All right, number 2 in our lineup today comes from Tipsy_Fox. Quote, "Not me, but my dad was an officer in the LAPD back in the late 80s. Not in the worst parts, thankfully, but still has his share of stories. The most memorable was one day he and his partner were on their normal patrol route when they spot a car driving all over the road, so they light up and pull this guy over. My dad's partner goes out and walks up to the car and taps on the window for the guy to roll it down. When he does, my dad sees his partner recoil, turn to the squad car where my dad is, and mouth the words, 'angel dust,' which is PCP. People on this can behave very violently and can be very difficult to subdue, often injuring officers in the attempt. Thus, my dad immediately calls in a report of someone on PCP and requests assistance. As he does this, my dad's partner orders the driver to exit the vehicle and place his hands on the hood of the car. The man waddles out of the car while giggling and places his hands on the left side of the hood. My dad exits the squad car and proceeds over to the right side of the car they pulled over. His partner begins patting the still giggling man down and then comes across a solid L-shaped object in the back of the man's pants. He signals my dad to report a possible gun, so my dad goes and quickly reports that they may be dealing with a man on PCP with a gun. Very shortly after that, they hear sirens start up in various directions a distance away. My dad resumes position on the right side of the car, and his partner begins trying to question the man. He asked him if he was on any medication, who he was, and what was in his pants. To each question, the man only giggled, but giggled even harder and began to fidget when they mentioned what was in the back of his pants. At him fidgeting, my dad and his partner get a bit nervous, and my dad's partner once again asks what is in the back of his pants. The man begins fidgeting even more than before and swaying, all while giggling hysterically. At this point, my dad draws his gun and keeps it lowered and sees 2 more squad cars rapidly approaching. His partner tries once more to demand to know what the man is carrying, but cannot get a word in past the giggles at this point. The other 2 squad cars pull up and the officers jump out, hands on their weapons just in case. My dad's partner nods at him to be ready, preps for a moment, and then yanks the guy's pants down. My dad's partner immediately backs away, his face turning bright red, and the other officers immediately begin laughing hysterically as the guy continues to giggle. My dad cannot see what they are seeing, so he asks what it is. He hears his partner mutter something, but doesn't quite understand, so once again demands, "What is it?" His partner just gets the words out, "Cuff him and throw him in the back," his face completely red. My dad walks around the car and sees the object the man was hiding. It was a bright red stiletto high-heeled shoe with the heel embedded firmly in the man's rectum. The other officers are beginning to make jokes about why my dad's partner really pulled him over when they throw him in the back and drive over to the station in complete silence. Minus the guy giggling, of course. My dad's partner is furious, and when they arrive at the station, he just says, "Get the jailer," not wanting to even remove the guy from the car. He was done with the situation. So my dad goes and gets the jailer, but doesn't tell him what to expect, thinking it'd be more entertaining. So he takes the jailer out to the squad car, swings open the door, and shows him the guy. Only the jailer says, much to my father and his partner's surprise, is, "God damn it, not another one." Grabs the shoe, pulls it out of the guy's ass, and pulls him out of the car and leads him into the station. My dad and his partner were both stunned by what the jailer said and agreed later on that had been one of the most hilarious outcomes to that situation that could have occurred. End quote.
God damn it, not again. I need to know more.
Yes.
Like, this deserves some research time.
That poor jailer. God damn it, not another one.
So was the guy really on PCP or
back in the 80s there was probably a lot of people on PCP, and
the 80s were a wild time.
They were a wild time. And
I need to know more. It might be the next rabbit hole.
Okay, I was about to say, you have fun with that rabbit hole. I don't need to read about stilettos and anuses. I'm good. I'm gonna draw the line there. I'm good.
Nope. I draw it at horse semen, and you draw it at. We all have our boundaries. It's fine.
Ass stilettos, no thanks.
Oh my god, that needs to be a thing. Okay. Oh, this next story is from Heart Shapes and Ninjas. I have so many questions. Quote, "Not a cop, but one time I got pulled over on I-10 going to California from Texas. It was the middle of freaking nowhere, Texas, and this is a really long drive. It takes forever to just get out of Texas. So yeah, I can't imagine.
I hate I-10.
Nope. It's awful. I hate all of it, but no one else is on the road, so I kind of zoned out and ended up going 110 to 115 miles an hour. It's easy to do. I had a turbo Beetle, and it could haul ass. So I see red lights and slam the brakes on. When I looked at the dash, I was doing like 90, but that was post-brake slam of panic. As I pull over, my brother, who was in the passenger seat holding my dog, wakes up and looks at me and just goes, 'You idiot.' Cop, ma'am, do you have any idea how fast you were going? Me, well, I know it was fast because when I hit the brakes, it slowed me to like 90. Cop, do you know that I can legally take you to jail for going that fast? The speed limit here is 75. Me, I can understand that. I was going super fast. I am really sorry. Cop stares at me for a solid 40 seconds while I nearly piss my pants in fear and try to think of how I will get myself out of jail and what my bro and dog will do if I get hauled off. Cop, I don't understand why you aren't crying. Me, what? Cop, usually right about now, all girls cry because they think it will get them out of a ticket. Me, well, I don't really feel like crying. Will crying change the fact that I was blasting down the highway at like 100? The cop busts out laughing. Cop, here's what we'll do. Since you didn't act like a spoiled brat and you are obviously in for a long trek, I'm going to give you a ticket that says you were going 85 and a 75. That will be a pretty penny, but way better than a suspended license and jail time. Sound good? Me. Sir, you are very kind. Thank you, officer. I will take that ticket. Cop goes and writes me the ticket, and I drive off. Brother. This is so unfair. I'd have been taken to jail. Girl cries, no ticket. Girl doesn't cry, no jail. You suck. Me. Dude, shut up. You would be calling mom for bail right now. And that is the story of how I learned to use the fucking cruise control. The cop is so impressed that she's not just like bawling her eyes out, that he's like, wow, you're taking this like a real champ. Cool. I don't want to deal with it.
There's stretches on I-10, though, where it really is just so easy. You look down like, oh, I've never seen the speedometer over there before. I should probably not do that.
Yeah. I had no idea I was going that fast. Oh, whoops. It's so easy to do on those long drives. For sure.
That pause between the cop staring at her, like waiting and expecting her to cry and nothing's happening.
She's just like, what?
It's chef's kiss. Amazing.
Uh-huh.
Hey, look, another Texas story.
Oh, yeah.
Super Spec writes, quote, I was a limo driver for a couple of years in College Station, Texas. Chuck Norris lives in Navasota, Texas, or more properly, just outside of a town in the county. I got an assignment to drive him to IAH. He's shorter than you'd expect, by the way, and really getting old. When I picked him up, he was nonchalant, but I was nervous. He told me to pick it up getting into Houston because he wanted to get to the President's Club or whatever it was called for that airline. Can't remember which airline he was flying. So I drove through the speed trap that I knew would be waiting for me when the speed limit of Highway 6 dropped to 65 at the Waller County line. The trooper pulled me over and asked me if I had anything to say for myself. I told him, Chuck Norris told me to kick it up a notch. And he gave me the dirtiest, try the other leg glare. And Chuck Norris rolled down his window and said, yeah, I told him to go a bit fast. Sorry. He'll do the speed limit from here. This was right after Chuck Norris was made an honorary Texas Ranger. The officer said, yes, sir, as he walked back to his car, end quote. Okay. There is no telling if that story is legitimately true or not, but for all intents and purposes and the sake of my happiness, it is.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, he does live out there, though.
It's plausible.
So,
it is definitely plausible, but I think whenever
Chuck Norris made me do it.
I want to be able to use that excuse one day. Amber, why did you do this? Chuck Norris told me to. You can't.
Chuck Norris told me to.
You can't argue with that logic. Sorry, Chuck Norris tells you to do something. You fucking do it.
He's a national treasure. You can't. Oh, man, I love it. Also, the idea of a limo in College Station cracks me up in itself because having lived there for a couple years, like, it's hard to imagine limos being a thing in College Station, but
it would definitely be a spectacle.
Yeah, it's not something you see very often there. That's for sure. Okay. Next one. General Faceman says these names. Oh, okay. Anyway, General Faceman says, got a call that there was a man tied up face down in a front yard. When I got there, this guy wasn't moving and was face down with his arms and legs pulled tightly to his body. I didn't see any rope or anything, but the dude was blindfolded. I spoke to him and he sat right up with a bunch of grass in his mouth. Dude was not happy to see the police and made some comments about how I was oppressing him and he wasn't hurting anyone, yada yada. I asked him what he was doing, and he stated that he was eating grass and meditating. This man self-identified as a ninja of the earth and was attempting to draw out other earth ninjas with his vibrations. Sounds more like a cow, but...
Hey, or goat.
He was on his mother's property, so I let him continue, but told him to do it somewhere less visible so as to not cause alarm. I saw the dude like 4 more times over the next week. He was always alone, so I guess the other Earth ninjas weren't responding well to his call. Tough luck, guy. Eating grass and meditating. That's a new one.
And see, we can't even blame drugs on this one. There's there's no telling. It could be, but there's no proof. So
it's another rabbit hole I gotta go down.
Another mystery.
Ass stilettos and earth ninjas. I'm writing it down. Next time on Weird True Crime.
No, God. I don't want any more ass stilettos. So I thought this one was the same story for a second, but it's not. A now deleted user commented, quote, "We got called out to check the welfare of a large guy laying face down in a yard. We rolled him over and did a sternal rub to try to wake him up, and it worked way too well. As he popped up screaming at the top of his lungs, his mother comes out. She scolds him for not behaving like a grown man should. He's still raging and takes a clumsy haymaker swing at us. Before we can restrain him, his mother delivers a forward-backward pimp smack to his face, then pulls down his pants and starts spanking his giant 28-year-old man ass." I'm sorry. The humiliation of that happening in front of the rather large crowd that had gathered at that point was punishment enough. We left him in his house for his mother to deal with. End quote.
Look, what's with the guys laying face down on the ground?
You said you were going to go down a rabbit hole. Get back to me on that one.
What? Is he also looking for earth ninjas?
I don't know, but that just goes to show you are never too old for your mama.
She freaking pimp snapped him. Isn't that assault? And the officers are just like, I'm just whatever, man. Like, I'm not getting involved in this situation.
If there's as they said, it's a rather large man and his mother,
his mommy,
pimp slap. No, that's a family matter. I'm out.
Was this like during the week too? Like, I have so many questions.
So many questions.
Was it in the same area? Like, where was one and where was, Okay. Maybe maybe he was trying to find the other Earth Ninja.
Maybe this is why he never found the Earth Ninjas, because he got pimp slapped by his mommy.
He was getting spanked by his mommy. So, our next story is from Pro Rock Expat. Best one I've heard from a friend who is an LEO.
Law enforcement officer.
Oh, I'm dumb. I was like, a Leo? Like the sign?
What's your sign?
What? Why is it all caps? Best one I've heard from a friend who is a law enforcement officer. Guy calls 911 and reports that someone broke into his house and stole a bunch of stuff. 911 dispatches my friend to the residence. My friend arrives. The guy is clearly high. My friend asks, "So what happened?" The guy says, some guy broke into my house and stole my crack. My buddy thinks for a moment and says, do you know who may have stolen your crack? He goes, yeah, my dealer stole my crack. Without skipping a beat, my friend responded, why did your dealer steal your crack? He goes, because I couldn't pay him. My buddy fired back, and how much do you owe him? He goes, about $40. My friend says, all right, 1 minute. Goes to his patrol car, calls in a couple undercover cops because they got unmarked cars, and they arrive and give this guy $40 and said, call up your dealer and tell him to bring back your crack. Tell him you got $40. He is thanking the officers for ignoring the fact that he is committing a crime and helping him get his shit back. Dealer comes around, guy pays $40 for the crack they exchanged, and both of them get arrested. Apparently, the dealer was really pissed off. That is so smart on the officer's part. Don't call and say somebody stole your crack.
I'm sorry.
And then believe them when they say they're going to pay you, like give you money for it.
No, prime example why drugs are bad. You do not make sound decisions.
Brain cells are gone.
Yeah.
At that point. Oh my, it's so great. I laughed so hard when I read that. Oh, smart cops. They're like, let's use this to our advantage.
Light bulb. Another deleted user story, quote, back when I was a patrol officer, I pulled over a car once for speeding. As I was walking up to the driver's side window, I tripped on a rock in the shoulder of the road and fell right on my face right by the window. It was one of those comical, cartoonish falls. I got up as quickly as I could, and as I was standing up, my foot slipped and I fell again. I finally stood up, out of breath, to this woman just staring at me in disbelief. After about 3 seconds of silence, we both busted out laughing. We both couldn't gain any composure after that, and I managed to get out. Please slow down and be safe, as I walked back to my car with tears streaming down my face. I still laugh when I think about it. End quote. I guarantee you, if I ever became a cop, this shit would be what would happen to me. That gravel, like that loose gravel on the shoulder, that will mess your day up. And yeah, legit would have just been a Three Stooges routine of fall up. No.
You're like, I quit. I can't even pull anybody over without falling over.
I'm done.
I quit.
You got to give the woman in the car props because she wasn't laughing immediately. Just what the
Don't laugh.
What am I seeing? What is happening? Where did he go?
Is this real?
It's really happening.
Am I being pranked right now? Like, what? He's like, I'm not even going to try to be serious after that. Just like, go on.
It's over. It's done.
Be gone with you. Please don't speed. Okay, goodbye. Oh, man. Okay. Tall Fescue, 1983, writes, quote, not the funniest, but one of my shorter stories. I got a call of a reckless driver. The report was of a blue Buick sedan that was failing to maintain its lane. I ended up locating it and following it for about a mile before pulling it over. Sure enough, it was swerving out of its lane, going erratic speeds, and so on. So I pulled it over and approached the driver's side window. It was raining pretty good. The driver was an extremely overweight 40-something female. She was wearing a large winter coat and trying to pull her right sleeve up so she could fit her arm in a McDonald's bag that was full of Big Macs. She was also eating one when I approached her. I told her why I pulled her over and about the reports I got on her driving. She then said to me, quote, you know how hard it is to get into a bag of Big Macs with a big coat on? End quote. I honestly just started laughing out loud. She was very nice and polite, and she definitely saw the humor in this whole scenario. The best part is the closest McDonald's is about 45 minutes north of my town. That woman went far.
That
for
is
some McDonald's.
determination. I swear they put something in their food because I don't like fast food. McDonald's is the last one on my list, but every now and then, oh my God, if I don't get a freaking quarter pounder and some McDonald's fries, I'm going to kill someone.
The fries.
It's definitely the fries.
Oh my God. Also, this woman couldn't just stop eating while the officer came to the car?
Look, it's 45 minutes away. Those burgers are getting cold by the minute. You got to eat that shit as fast as possible.
They do get cold pretty quickly, so you gotta get on that shit. Oh,
damn it! Now I want McDonald's.
Yeah, me too. That's bad. Okay.
And last but not least, I mean, we're talking about cops, so there had to be a donut thrown in there. From the New Humanism, quote, answering for my significant other, who's a police officer. He once pulled over a college-aged girl for running a stop sign. When he got up to her window, he saw that she had a box of donuts in her passenger seat and one in her hand with a bite out of it. She froze with the donut in hand and then looked him in the eye and stuffed the whole thing in her mouth in one bite. He asked her what her problem was. I thought you'd take it from me. He laughed enough to just let her off with a warning. I asked him once if she gave him a donut, and he declined to answer. End quote.
Which means that she did. He's like, I'm not answering that.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah. I'd be like, hell yeah, she gave me a donut. I didn't give her a ticket.
Give me a donut. Get out of here.
Let's be real. I want a donut. No, okay, look, all cops do not like donuts. I
think that whole stereotype is kind of entertaining, and especially when a police officer plays into it, like leans into it themselves, makes it hilarious.
Also, that's pretty skill to be to be able to put a whole donut in your mouth.
Naturally, that's where you take the conversation.
I couldn't do that.
I wouldn't even think about doing that.
But I mean, she shoved the whole thing in her mouth. It's like he's staring at her and she's just like, my initial gut instinct is just shove this whole thing in my mouth. Well, so you don't take it.
It could have been like a Krispy Kreme donut. If she already had a bite out of it, it's just like, the little bit. It's not like a full.
Oh, God. Krispy Kreme. Now I want donuts.
Okay, you go get Krispy Kreme and I will go get a basket of fries.
Deal.
Anyway. This crazy train.
I love it. Oh, man, that was so needed. Thank you for joining us for another What the Fuck Wednesday. We hope we were able to bring a smile to your face. I know that we enjoy the lighter side of true crime once in a while, so if you're in the mood for some more funny related content, head on over to our website at weirdtruecrime.com where you can check out past episodes we've done. It's not all fun and games, though, as we just completed a 3-part episode on the tragic death of Gannon Stauch. That was a doozy.
More exciting things are on the horizon for us. Follow us on Instagram at Weird True Crime and join our Facebook group to get in on the discussion. Before we say adieu, let's go over that riddle one more time. The man who built it doesn't want it. The man who bought it doesn't need it. And the man who needs it doesn't know it. What is it? It's a coffin. Did you figure it out?
No. I had no fucking clue. Like, Amber, I don't know. I don't understand any of these. I'm obviously not good at riddles.
I like the riddles.
I know, they're great. Anyway, sorry, I just totally took that over, but I was like, seriously, a coffin?
Well, I mean, the man who built it, he's building it for somebody else. He doesn't want it. The man who bought it for somebody else. He's not the one that needs it. And
the
homie's dead doesn't give a shit.
Oh, man.
Anyway, links can be found in the show notes.
Until next time, stay safe.
And make good choices. Bye. Bye-bye. buddy once told me. What the hell was that? See, this is really going to be interesting. Like that. That's where it's at. Just give me a basket of steamy McDonald's fries. I'm clearly hungry.
Me too.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting... Anyway, okay.
We're almost done. It's almost done.